small life update. I just bought this car. The infamous how I bought my first car at 21 years old. My name is Leanne. I'm 22 years old. And last June, I bought my first car at 21. I live in Seattle, Washington, and I bought this car entirely myself, which I feel like was a pretty big accomplishment for me. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you my entire car buying experience and just completely being transparent about my whole experience. Let's get into the video. The car that I drive and that I now own is a 2014 Toyota Camry SE. Okay, today's the day that we test drive 2014 Toyota Camry LE or SE. I'm pretty sure it's the LE. First, the need of buying a car. I graduated college last June and I had known that I wanted to buy my car once I was done with college. I grew up driving my dad's Tacoma from 16 all the way throughout high school, and then when I came to college in Seattle, there was not really a need for me to have a car since I lived in the city. Everywhere that I needed to go and everything that I needed was kind of within walking distance, or I would take public transportation. Also, with living in Seattle, parking is a pain in the ass. It either costs money and you're parallel parking everywhere, so there was just no need for me to have a car. And someone would even argue that you can get by with living in Seattle without having a car. I can definitely see that as well, but I'm someone that sees having a car and having my own form of transportation was kind of like a sense of freedom to me. I always wanted the ability to just like be able to get in my car and go wherever I needed, whenever I needed, and didn't really want to feel like a burden in asking other people to drive me places. I always knew that I wanted to buy a car once I was going to be leaving my little college area. Now for the want of having a car. I knew that I needed to have a car. In terms of what I actually wanted in a car, I knew that I wanted to have a Japanese made car. My family grew up with Toyotas. I'm pretty brand loyal to Toyotas. I grew up driving a Tacoma. My parents drive a Highlander, and now my dad drives a different kind of Tacoma. I knew that I wanted a Japanese car because Japanese cars are just known for being affordable. Their parts are really common to find, and so if anything in my car were to break down, I knew that there would be a lot of places for me to go in order to go get that fixed. So I knew I wanted a Japanese car. I also knew that the very first car I was going to buy was going to be a used car. It was going to be a pre-owned car, because when you buy a brand new car, like if I were to buy like a 2022 or 2023 model, the second you buy that car and drive it off the lot, it loses like at least a third of its value because it then becomes pre-owned. So I just knew I wasn't going to buy a brand new car after graduating college, and it would make me feel really great further along in the future when I have enough money to completely buy like a brand new car. But I knew I was going to be buying a pre-owned car. That being said, I wasn't going to buy a relatively new pre-owned car, but it would still be kind of expensive. So pre-owned car, somewhat affordable, and I do live in the city, so I wasn't going to be buying another pickup truck like how I grew up driving, or I wasn't going to be buying like a big SUV kind of car. I knew that I just wanted a medium-sized sedan that would be easy for me to park and easy for me to navigate around the city. I wanted a used Japanese car. Since I knew that this was essentially going to be my car, driving it all the way until I could buy myself like a brand new car, I wanted it to be relatively new in the sense that it had the most updated features, because I was going to be driving this car for at least 7 years. That's how much faith I have, at least like in Toyota. Those could last you like 25 years at least. I wanted ones that were going to have features that I would really love to have in a car. It having Bluetooth, AC, a backup camera, having one of those like little screens in the car was something that I was willing to pay money for, especially with like all the parallel parking. Having a backup camera was going to be perfect. It's going to be perfect. The earliest models of Toyota sedans that had these kind of updated features were going to be the 2014 models. That became the baseline make year for me when it came to my search. And then aesthetically, I did want a car that had no external damage. So no like dented bumpers, no like replaced, discolored parts and everything, just because I knew it was like, this is going to be the car that I'm going to be driving for at least at least the next 5 years. I wanted it to be white, just because I think white cars look so clean. They look so clean. But I was also willing to settle for black, but I wanted a white car. I also wanted it to be somewhat eco-friendly so that gas wouldn't be another unexpected expense that I would have to consider. Lastly, I wanted it to be affordable with the amount that I had saved up. I would actually like to think that I had manifested the car. I got very specific with what I wanted, how it looked, how much I would be paying for it, and how good it would feel once I finally had that car. I really honed in on the feeling of it and visualized like what this car would look like, how I would feel driving the car, how I would look like in my car, how I would feel driving my car. I actually wrote down all of these features that I wanted for my car, and I filled up a little jar with water and I stuck my note in there and I put it on my windowsill during a full moon. And that's how I like to say that I've manifested my car, because I did. Okay, so now we had my need and we have my want. So on to the search and where I looked. I had begun searching, like lightly searching from February, and then as it got closer to June and like me graduating, I started like really searching, and I'm talking dealerships and Craigslist, all those places. I looked at Tread, I looked at Facebook Marketplace, I looked at Kelley Blue Book, lots and lots of Google searches that were taking me to sites where they were selling pre-owned cars. So Toyota dealerships, Lexus dealerships. How I actually found the car and where I bought it. In another one of the Google searches I was doing, I was just typing in things like Toyota Camry 2014, stumbled upon a site called Eastlake Auto Brokers. They are an auto broker in Kirkland, Washington, and they are solely a used car dealership. All of their listings posted on their website. It was late at night when I was doing this search, and I had seen the car that I had been imagining posted on this website, like down to it was a 2014 white Camry. It had a completely clean title. It had 78,000 miles on the odometer, and it was available. It was actually just posted. So late at night, I sent over my inquiry to test drive the car. That next morning, I received a call from Robbie from Eastlake asking me when I was going to be available to test drive it, and he was like, oh, can you come in at 10:30? I think it was probably like 9 a.m. at this point. He's like, oh, can you come in at 10:30? I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna come in at 10:30. He had actually just mentioned that someone else was scheduled to come test drive the car and they had just canceled. So I was like, yeah, I will be there at 10:30. This day, June 28th of 2021, also happened to be the hottest day of the year. Probably like 100, I don't know, 108 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that.
The heat wave is still happening. It's 110 degrees, so if you hear my fan, that's why.
I got my friend Emily, and we had packed up all of our stuff and plans to go to the lake after this test drive.
I'm also in my bathing suit, so I'm gonna test drive this car and then go to the lake after. Auto broker that I had emailed got back to me so soon, so I'm gonna go test drive it today.
I just knew that I had to hop on this opportunity because this car was listed at $14,995, so $15K with 78,000 miles. All of the other dealerships that were selling a car that had everything that I wanted were going for higher listing prices and also had a higher mileage. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to see this car and get there before anyone else does. I did not anticipate on buying the car this day when I went, but I ended up buying the car the same day that I test drove it.
I probably won't walk away with the car today.
So now getting into test driving the car and when we had arrived. Pulled up to this auto brokerage, met with Robbie, the guy who called me, and I see this beautiful car sitting in the lot.
Oh my god, she's so sexy. We're out here. Gonna test drive it.
And you know, Robbie and I in the front seat, now Emily's in the back seat, and we are just going down this road. This brokerage is also like next to the area that I grew up, so it was like driving this car that I could really see myself owning in an area that I was really familiar with, so I knew where we were going, and the test drive itself just kind of felt great. I learned how to drive in a pickup truck. This car, in comparison to all the other cars that I had kind of like grown up driving had been the smallest car. The whole time we were test driving, I was asking a bunch of questions, chatting with Robbie the whole time really about like life, his kids, his family, talking about the features, testing out the features and how it felt driving it. And it felt so, it's just, oh man, I just love Toyota so much. And compared to driving like this pickup truck now in this Camry, it felt so smooth, so clean on the inside. I can't remember off the top of my head like all of the specific questions I was asking about the car itself, but I had a really great test drive. It was also great to have my friend Emily there with me, of course, because it was like having another opinion. Emily herself doesn't drive, so it was like, okay, as a passenger, how did it feel driving this car and being in the back seat? So that was great to have. After we did the little test drive, we went back to the brokerage. Now we can go talk finances. And like I said, I didn't know and I didn't anticipate on buying this car, but I knew, okay, I can test drive this car and then go see in terms of like the whole financial breakdown, how much it's going to cost and anything. So then I'd have a baseline of comparing all of the other ones that I've been seeing online to what I was experiencing now. This was my first test drive, my first and my last test drive. I was very specific in what I was looking for and also how much I was able to pay. So when we started talking about finances and how it actually ended up going, I was like, okay, like this is it, the search is over. Now, getting into the nitty-gritty, the finances of everything, because I think that this is what's going to be the most beneficial for any of you first-time car buyers out there. Before I went to this test drive, I was checking with a lot of other financial institutions to see what kind of interest rates I could be getting on an auto loan. I checked BECU, Bank of America, and there was one other place that I wrote down in my notes that I didn't fully write down the name of, but it begins with an E, but I can't remember which one it is, but it begins with an E. I'm gonna get my APR quotes from all of these other financial institutions. That way I know what interest rate I could be getting at these places, and then when I go to talk about finances at this place, I'll be able to say, well, no, Bank of America can actually give me a lower interest rate. Can you match that?
I was pre-approved by my bank for a loan. I did apply for another auto loan through a credit union, and I'm going to get a lower rate through them.
BECU was estimating a 3.99% APR. Bank of America was offering me a 4.04% APR, and then this E institution was offering me a, what was it? I have everything right here written down in front of me. It was, here it is, on the back of the Carfax.
But I'm also going to see if this place offers financing.
E stood for East Lake Auto Brokers.
So
BECU can be giving me the lowest rate. And if you don't know, APR stands for annual percentage rate, meaning that this was going to be the fixed interest rate that I could be getting on the auto loan that I was going to be taking out. And that means that like this rate wasn't going to change over the years and the interest wouldn't be compounding or anything. My credit score at the time of the application was 736. Because I wasn't going to be fully financing this car, I had about $5,000 saved up, and I knew that I was going to be taking out an auto loan. Go back, have their little talk with the finance people, go run my report. And he came back and was like, this is great news. You were approved for a 4.49% interest rate on an auto loan. And I was like, well, actually, BECU can give me a 3.99% APR. So can you match that? And they're like, oh, they're pretty much like, oh shit. She came in here with numbers. Okay, let us go back and talk about what we can do and apply for a loan with BECU. They just do like a quick credit check to see like what rate that I'd be eligible for. I said that BECU can give me a 3.99%, but then when they went back to run my actual report with BECU, they came back with a 2.69% APR, which was amazing. It was almost like 2% lower than that very first one that I had come in with. I cannot express enough how important it is to do your research beforehand and to go into these kinds of like financial meetings with a baseline to compare with, because there's always an opportunity to negotiate these terms. So 2.69, I was ecstatic. I was like, that is great.
My biggest flex is arguing from the 4.49% interest rate that they were trying to sell me on to a 2.69% interest rate. Like, I did that. Like, I bought myself a car today.
I really think that I was able to get this great of a rate because I had a credit score of 736. Being 21 at the time, 736 is really great considering like a lot of people my age might just be starting out with their credit or might not have any kind of credit at all and might require like a cosigner. I have a pretty good credit score because I started working right at 16 and I already had a checking account and a savings account open under my name, and then at the time I had like 2 open lines of credit. I was on time with my payments and varied the kind of expenses that I had under each line of credit. But getting a good credit score in itself can be a whole separate video that I can talk about. The interest rate that I got lined up with what was happening at the time and where we were in terms of the pandemic, because obviously the car market in and of itself was pretty low since no one was really like buying new cars, not so many people were driving as much. So it was really great for me to be buying a car at the time that I did. In terms of the fees and the financial breakdown, the listing price was $15,000. Then we have the documentary service fee, aka the processing fee. That was $150. Also, if I'm looking over here, it's because I have everything right here in front of me. The sales tax on the vehicle was $1,574.48. The title and the licensing fee was $283.75, making the total sale price of the car to be $17,003.23. So I had over $5,000 saved to buy this car, and I decided to put $3,000 of those dollars down because I didn't want to entirely deplete my savings, and I wanted enough to cover me for the next few months of car payment and the routine car services that might come up, which meant that the remainder to be financed was $14,003.23. With my 2.69% APR, the total amount of interest that I would pay came out to be $799.01. So let's just call it $800. $800, making the total amount I would pay towards my loan would be $14,802.24. My options in terms of the loan repayment, it was broken down into 48 months, so 4 years, 60 months, 5 years, and then 72 months, 6 years. Right? Yeah, 6 years. It went even higher, but I did not want to be paying off my car over 9 years. And I also anticipated being able to make more money over the course of this 4 years so that I could be paying off gradually over the next 4 years. I went with the 4-year option. The monthly car payments would come out to be $308.38. starting July 12th. So I had just a bit over a month before my first auto loan payment would be, since I had just paid $3,000 down on my car. I think that should be everything in terms of the financial breakdown. Now getting into my personal experience buying from Eastlake Auto Brokers. I had an amazing experience. I went and wrote like a whole fucking story on Google reviews about this place, as I promised them that I would, because I just had such an amazing experience as a first-time car buyer. I'm always someone that's going to be rooting for the small guys and supporting small businesses. As a young woman walking into any kind of car-related business, there's plenty of opportunity to be taken advantage of and to spend a lot more money than you were initially expecting to. Walking into this experience with that very stereotypical, like, sleazy car salesman vibe, I experienced the complete opposite of that, essentially.
I have to get ready because it's time to turn. We're going into car girl mode. Pull out all of my knowledge, and as sad as it sounds, I feel like I have to get ready. I also just don't get taken advantage of. I feel like I need to be my best self in order to not get walked all over, and just like to be firm on, you know, what I want, what I need, and to not have to end up spending more money at this dealership. So let's get ready.
I feel like I really got to know Robbie on a personal level when we were test driving the car. I'm just talking to like this regular guy, not someone that's just trying to make so much of a profit. The whole establishment just gave me such like a family-oriented small business kind of vibe. Obviously, I mean, they gave us water because we were there on the hottest day of the year. They even gave us ice cream. They had like this whole freezer full of drumsticks and Otter Pops that they would just give out to their customers. So it was nice to just eat that. They had toys and a whole little play area set up for kids that would come in, like if you were a family. And they even had this little broker dog who was just like wandering around. It was just like such a fun little presence. You could also just really tell that all of the employees there had a really close relationship. They didn't have like cubicles or anything, like their desks were spaced apart from each other so that they could just be talking to each other like across the room. Someone who was sitting at the desk next to the finance lady I was talking to, we were chatting. She was actually the owner of the establishment, and she also went to UW. Just loved the fact that it was a woman-owned business. She started this business with the intention to be very different from all of those stereotypical kind of buying experiences, and wanted to cultivate like a safe place for people to come in. Absolutely love that. Her name was Gella. Yeah, Gella, I think. And then I was talking to the finance lady. Her name is Kimberly. She was into crystals, and she gave me a great recommendation of this annual convention where you can buy metaphysical products at a discount. The whole experience on my end was very transparent, and I felt really safe and knowledgeable buying the car. I loved my experience so much that I brought my entire family with me the very next day when I came back to pick up my car, and I introduced my whole family to everyone that was working there because I just loved the people there. To Robbie, thank you so much for making my first car buying experience a success. I hope your kids are doing well, and I highly recommend buying all of your pre-owned cars from Eastlake Auto Brokers in Kirkland. If you live in Washington State, go there, ask for Robbie, and tell them that Leanne sent you. You'll have a great time.
In my new car, and my dad is driving. Just look at this beautiful sunroof. This is the first time I'm a passenger in my car.
Ooh, it's pretty smooth. Drives nice, man.
Getting into the key takeaways from my car buying experience, you have to be very, very specific with what you want, what you're looking for, and don't settle for anything less. If you're just going into this experience like, oh, I want a car, well, of course, you're going to be seeing cars everywhere. You're gonna be seeing cars when you're out on the road. You're gonna be looking at a dealership and you're gonna see lots of cars. But whether it's something you want or something you're just gonna settle for, that's entirely up to you.
I'm going to drive my car off the lot. This is such a big day.
The next takeaway, definitely come prepared. Cross-check all of your rates with a handful of different financial institutions and see which one you're gonna get the best rate with, and be asking a lot of those questions. Like if I didn't come in with that rate already, I wouldn't have gotten as low of a rate as I actually did, and I could have just ended up walking away with the first rate that I was given, which was 4.49%.
To take some pictures with me. It just doesn't feel real. That it was just yesterday that I bought this for myself in here. I have it today.
Read all of the forms in detail. I know that it can be very lengthy. You want to know what you're signing yourself away to. It can be really easy to just like initial everything at the bottom, but know what you are signing up for. If you know that you want to be buying a car for yourself, start saving. Just start saving already. You can't just wake up and decide one day that you're gonna go buy a car. Start saving your money. Even if you think you're gonna be buying a car next year, start saving and putting your money away now. I would suggest having at least a third of the purchase price. Obviously, more is better, but don't be afraid to take out a loan. Even if I had $20,000 just tucked away to buy a car, I still wouldn't have gone with the option of paying it down in full, because actually having an auto loan, having student loans, having a phone loan, I had one for my phone. Having these kinds of loans, it's actually good for your credit. Is this person making their payments on time every single month? Having like those various kinds of loans out under in your name, like that's something that boosts your credit score. By me taking out this auto loan the next month, my credit score actually went up over 20 points. So just an example.
Yes, I did buy a car today.
And the last key takeaway is definitely knowing when to walk away. Even though I did buy this car on the same day that I test drove it, I did that because I knew specifically what I wanted in a car and how much I was able to pay for it. If this car didn't have everything that I wanted, or if it was going to be too much than I actually had saved up, I would have just been like, okay, test drove it, took all of that financial information, and now I know what that baseline is for when I go to the next one. But since it really did tick all of these boxes for me, I knew that it was something that I had to hop on.
This was exactly the car that I manifested too.
And also, I don't know if they were expecting me to buy that car the same day either, but someone had actually scheduled to test drive it right after too, and Robbie had to call them and be like, so someone just bought the car. Sorry.
She's so sexy.
So this is how I bought my first car at 21 years old. If you have any other questions about my car buying experience, comment them down below and I'd be happy to answer them for you. Also, let me know if you would like a car tour, because I just think those are so much fun. It's now been just about seven months, I think. Over 7 months of me buying this car, and you know, I've still been learning a lot of things about having my own car and the kind of expenses that would be coming up. If you'd like to see a video on like the things that I wish I knew before buying my car and what expenses to consider, I would like to state that I'm not a financial advisor and you do not have to follow my exact process, but I just wanted to be open, honest, and transparent about my own experience so that it can help someone else out there that might be thinking about buying their first car. I know how much it benefited me to watch a bunch of YouTube videos about other people's car buying experiences and what they did. I hope you all enjoyed this video. It would mean a lot to me if you subscribe to my channel, hit that little notification bell that notifies you whenever I upload, subscribe for more lifestyle content, and give this video a thumbs up. Check the description box for Eastlake Auto Brokers information. I literally kept all of their business cards because I love them all so much. I just want to be able to support this small business, woman-owned business. I will see you all in the next one.